In December 2010, a man disguised in a hoodie walked into a convenience store and bought a lottery ticket. This ticket would be worth $16 million. But this wasn't the first time that Eddie Tipton found himself with the winning numbers.
He did it in Colorado, one of our other states. He did it in Wisconsin before us.
He was the man behind coding the lottery numbers, and he'd built himself a way to win.
He had all the keys to the kingdom. He put in a code that would allow him one time every year to know the numbers within 200 combinations instead of 2 million or 20 million.
The red flag started when nobody claimed the jackpot. Then, just hours before the deadline, someone else tried to claim the prize anonymously, raising even more suspicion. So how did they catch this insider? Criminal investigators closed in, linking clues across states. And what started as a mystery ticket became one of the biggest inside jobs in US lottery history.
And when we busted him, it took 2 hot dogs and Bigfoot along with the ticket to figure him out.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hello and welcome to another episode of No Ordinary Monday. Thank you so much for joining us. I am your host, Chris Barron, and each week I sit down with a guest whose job is far from ordinary. We explore how they got there, what it's really like behind the scenes, and then I ask them to relive the single most unforgettable experience of their career. Now, before we dive in, I am introducing a new segment to the show. At the end of each episode, I'll be sharing a listener story, a funny, surprising, or just plain weird moment from your working life. So if you've got a great story up your sleeve, hang around at the end of this episode to find out how to send it in. Okay, so on to this week's show. My guest this week has lived one of the most eclectic careers you can imagine, from building cable TV networks in the early days of broadcasting to running a zoo to eventually becoming CEO of the Iowa Lottery. And throughout it all, he's built a reputation for turning unconventional ideas into big successes, whether it's selling tiger poop as deer repellent or helping to build iconic channels like MTV and HBO. Terry Rich is an entrepreneur and CEO whose mix of creativity and curiosity has taken him from being a farm boy in Iowa to boardrooms and newsrooms across America. And as you heard in that intro, Terry's big story takes us deep inside one of the most remarkable investigations in US lottery history. A high-stakes case of big money, hidden code, and the hunt for an insider who tried to rig the system for personal gain. So stay tuned for a behind-the-scenes look at the wild ideas, close calls, and unexpected turns that defined Terry's extraordinary career. You're listening to No Ordinary Monday. Let's get into the show. Terry Rich, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
Things are going great. Loving talking to new people across the world and telling some crazy stories and maybe learn a little from you too.
Oh, well, yeah, we'll see. I hope I can impart as much knowledge in my age of career compared to yours, but we'll see. Fingers crossed. We can only hope. So I always like to start these conversations with, where my career and my experiences might be overlaps with the guests. And I guess yours and mine is very much in the TV world. What I love about people in television and people's stories in television is that everyone has it's not like doing engineering or something like that. Like, people went to university and then join an engineering firm. People fall into television in all sorts of weird and wonderful ways. And I just wonder whether you could tell us how you first fell into television.
I wanted to be a farmer. I grew up not thinking of TV. I loved to watch it, of course, but no, I grew up and went to school as a math major, and all of a sudden the guy said, "Hey, you can go over here and talk and make a living." I thought, "Hey, that's for me." So I started thinking about radio and TV and getting involved in college. But what really was the big break that I had was a couple of people came in and said, "We're looking for someone to help us in cable television." And cable wasn't cool then. Ted Turner was just getting started thinking about cable news network and all these different networks. But I raised my hand because all my buddies had gone to broadcast and I was late, so I thought I'd get into it. And it was the greatest entrepreneurial experience I ever had because it was just getting started. I enjoyed production. I enjoyed TV. and it was going really, really well, and things were growing. Everything we touched seemed to turn to gold, and we were expanding. They were paying me these things called stock options. I had no idea what they were, but I was making more than I ever would have on the farm. So it was really fun. And then you always have these critical things that happen in your life. I was doing some on-camera work for this cable company in the old
Mm.
days, and I looked up and I didn't have a 5 o'clock shadow. So I wrote to Gillette and told them how much I loved their razor. I thinking I'm going to get on national television. I get to fly to New York right away. So I sent it thinking in 2 weeks I'm going to get on it. And it was like someone trying to win the Powerball in America, winning the big jackpot in lottery. What happens if? What happens if they write back and say, come on out? 2 weeks to the day I got the letter and I had failed. They said, Dear Mr. Rich, we appreciate your enjoyment. You don't have the 5 o'clock shadow, but you wrote the wrong company. Schick makes that. Oh no, I wrote the wrong. I failed. I failed, and but that gave me a desire. I didn't realize what I had, so I really wanted to do that more, and always look for ways to do TV and the entertainment aspect of what cable
Mm.
television was, because we got to help start MTV, HBO, all of these
Wow.
different
Wow.
channels, and everything was so fun as we did that. And then the big break really came because I got a call from my hometown that said they're going to have a centennial. Hey, 100 years old. We've never had anybody famous. You're doing some TV. Would you like to join us? So I said, well, I'll help you, but I shouldn't be it. Let's see if we can adopt somebody. So I wrote a press release and I sent out 44 press releases because I hit the copier the wrong number. I was going to do 4 and I hit 44. So I just started writing Associated Press, Miami Herald, London Times, all of the different ones just to get it out there.
Yeah.
One person called back. I failed 43 of the 44 times. One person wrote back from United Press International, and they said, we like it. We'll stick it on the wires. Lo and behold, it made the Johnny Carson show, and we got to go out and be in front of 20 million people. And boy, I'll tell you, that
Wow.
really sparked the entertainment and the TV of how easy it was, really, just if you raise your hand and you volunteer and try something, how easy it is to make a success in what you're trying to do. And that's kind of how I got involved in it. And it just went so well. I mean, we did so well. And then at 40, guess what? As it happens, somebody decided to come in and take over the company and do a full buyout.
Yeah.
And so, well, those stock options turned out to be a pretty cool deal. So now I'm at age
Yeah.
40,
Not
wondering what the heck
not a
do you
bad
do
deal.
next?
I'm always curious in people's. We kind of touched on it a little bit, and I'm always curious guests come on their origin story, and we've kind of touched on it a little bit before. But you said you grew up on a farm, in Iowa, and as a kid, did you have great aspirations to sort of leave the farm and become heads of companies and run the lottery and be all that kind of stuff, or were you kind of content with farm life? How did it go as a
I was
kid?
definitely content with farm life. It was a great life. You worked hard, you got money, but you were always friendly. Everybody was always joking. Everybody was always happy. Seemed
Yeah.
like, I grew up, I assume we were poor. Of course, my last name is Rich, but in general, I don't think we had a lot of money because my generations back lost everything during the Great Depression of America in
Mm.
the late 30s. So, but yet every time we had a meal or we had the family together, we had fun. And so that's another thing you always try to look for again, because that was something that when you grew up in that. And so I try to do and look for the same thing in leadership qualities to make it fun for people that work for you.
I want to just touch on. I mean, going back to your farm life. You were on the farm, and I guess you're doing hard work on the farm. With your dad, and then also going to school. But then you went to college, and you did mathematics or something, right?
Yeah, I mathematics, physics. That was fun. I figured I'd get a
Wow.
PhD and teach college in
Yeah.
math. But I got into a class, and this is back to how your personality and what drives you. I got into a class to prove in 6 months with axiom and theorems, one was not equal to zero. What? I just about fell over. I'd
Yeah.
passed out of a year or two of all of that to begin with. It wasn't fun, but the deduction methods of if this, then. So you're always thinking, okay, if we can make this, do this over here, we can make this much money over there, proved to be helpful, down the road in the
Interesting.
theories and things that we did. But then it took a guy just to say, hey, you could talk, make a living. And I went over to the TV and radio class, and then worked at the local radio station, and just had an absolute ball. And at the same time, the politics that I mentioned, my mom always was encouraging me to get into leadership roles. I got on the local college entertainment committee for their homecoming and Greek week and all of the different things that happens there, and got to book all the big acts that came into Hilton Coliseum that were the
Yeah.
big stars of the day, Elton John to whoever, and so that kept the enthusiasm going, with all of that for trying to stay in television some way.
Brilliant. And so that you kept mentioning that guy a couple of times. The guy that you said, "Oh, you can come over here." And sort of, was that someone that you did you drop out of mathematics at college, or did you complete it?
I would have had a major if I'd have graduated in a science
Yeah.
major, but I had a degree in journalism as a sub major. So yeah,
Oh, okay.
and it was a professor too taught me that it's better to have tried and failed than to succeed at doing nothing.
Yeah.
And I always thought about that. That's a heck of a deal. Better to have tried and failed than to succeed at doing nothing. So that's back to the concept you and I are talking about of trying to get a lot of ideas and having a backup if one doesn't work, but you've got to try something. If you don't actually act on it, you're never ever going to succeed at having success in a given endeavor.
Yeah. Brilliant. So basically, you had the sub major of journalism, and it was in that you're like, I'm good at talking. I'm good with people. I'm sort of charming personality. I could sort of make a career out of that. And then you moved over and did radio and sort of flourished from there. Brilliant.
Hate to tell you this, but you know what my major is actual? Because it was a science and technology college, I
Yeah.
have a BS in speech. Bachelor of Science in Speech is actually my degree.
BS and speech. I love it.
Yeah.
And what
No,
did your dad think? Was he expecting you to take over the farm one day, or was he kind of like go forth and flourish, my
is
son?
tough. Farming is tough, and he just said, I think you could make a more steady career in something else. Try it and see. You can always come back. You can work summers. You can help me. But he said, see, kind of see what you can do. And once you're on TV and you come from a farm in a small community where they don't get to see people who are ever on TV, then he was really happy because everybody, hey, saw your son on TV
Yeah.
today.
So he was like, "Yeah, I'm good. I'm proud of my son.
Yeah, I'm
He's all
good.
good."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep up the good
And
work.
did you? Because obviously on the farm, I don't know what kind of farm you guys had. Was it with animals and stuff like that? Did that ever transition into your zoo work?
Absolutely. When I came out of having my own companies, I was 50, and I guess you call it midlife crisis. I decided I got to get off the road. I mean, I got the money I want. I've traveled what I want. And they called and said, "Hey, would you be interested in helping us? We're taking over the zoo from the city." And I thought, well, raising a giraffe can't be that much different than raising a cow, and really it wasn't. The only
Really?
difference was the tigers we had, there were only 300 in the world, and if one of them died for some reason, you're losing the species.
Oh wow,
Versus a
yeah,
cow, you can theoretically get another cow. It was
yeah,
much like that, but my whole concept was to go in and make the zoo something different because we had every kid from 2 to 12 they were already going to the zoo. They were losing money. The city was only charging $4 to get in, and the zoo way down the road was doing it for $35. But the city didn't want to hurt the kids, and so we started doing crazy stuff. And this is part of the entrepreneur things. We had no money to
yeah.
build a new exhibit or anything. So I said, what do we have that is that we already have that we can use? And I thought, wait a minute, all the animals poop. Let's do an exhibit, scoop on poop. So the kids could come in and they could see all of the different kinds of poops, elephant poop, giraffe poop, and
Yeah.
giggle and point, and then they'd go home and tell their friends, and then everybody's coming out. So we started, building that base even bigger. And then we said, well, but we got to expand it. Remember back to the diversity when you come up with ideas, now we can market them worldwide. Why don't we have more young adults? Well, young adults, I don't want to do the zoo. I did it when I was a kid. Most people go when they're a kid, when they take their kid, when they take their grandkid. What do we get young adults in? Well, what do young adults like? Booze. So we decided to do a zoo brew. So
Yeah.
at night, we open the zoo, no kids allowed, and you bring your dates, you do whatever. We have a band, and we have all the animals out, and so peaceful. It isn't a smoky bar. And all of a sudden, we started selling $250,000 in booze on
Wow.
these people coming in. Isn't that crazy?
Well,
And so you find ways to look for, and then once you have success, and the zookeeper saying, we can't keep the animals open at night. Well, we took some of that money and gave back to them for enrichment toys for the
Yeah.
animals. Now everybody was happy, and all of a sudden we grew. We increased the price from $4.95 to $9.95 because that still was cheap. And they're saying, "Oh, we don't. Poor kids can't come in this way." And I said, "Well, tell you what, they get in free. So if they come up and mom says, 'Kids, this is too expensive,' just let them in because we know the people from the other zoo that's paying $25. They're going to come over and they're going to be excited about that price. And all of a sudden, everything just lifted up. And then as you have success, success breeds success. The donors of the zoo who had backed down a little bit because it was run down and not doing well started giving more, and we did something called an endowment. In nonprofits, you want to have a big fund that just the interest off it continues your operation. And that's a big one in any operations. You got to have cash flow. So you got to have money to be able to exist if you have a bad day or COVID hits or whatever. And so they started donating, and we raised about 15 million in endowment. So that
Wow.
zoo is going to be around forever, and it's become the second largest cultural attraction in this area.
Brilliant. I have to ask, with the alcohol at the zoo idea, I mean, you must have had some stories of drunken escapades, people trying to climb into the elephant enclosure and or
We started with a lot of cops, a lot of people watching everybody, and it turned out to be the opposite because instead of when you go to a bar, it's enclosed, music's
yeah,
loud, and everybody's pounding and having a
yeah.
great time. This, people came and just darn enjoyed themselves. And we had some
Okay, good.
specialty nights too, which kind of added to it. We had one night, a Barry Manilow night, because we had a zebra that we needed to get pregnant. It was a very, not extinct, but not
Yeah,
many of
endangered,
that
yeah.
species were around. And we got a male and female, and we waited till her gestation period. You can't say that until you're a zoo director. This gestation period was a time that we put the male in, and we knew that they would breed that night. So we had a Barry Manilow night. We played Barry Manilow music, told everybody, if you're trying to have a baby, come on out and have a drink, and let's all get together and watch the zebras go at it. And I mean, again, the earned media. We had all this free press. All the people that came, they thought that it was a hoot, and all of a sudden, more people came, and we just became kind of. I don't want to. We used the word hip back in the day, but
Yeah,
it became the in place to go.
yeah. It's kind of cool, kind of funky, interesting
Back to the
stuff going
scoop
on.
on poop, the other thing that was fun is we figured out that we have white-tailed deer in our area that eat all of our flowers and everything, and
Yeah.
it's tough to find repellent. But we figured out, we tested it, and tiger poop is a natural predator. Now, a deer has never seen in Iowa a tiger in the wild,
Yeah.
but when they smell that, for some reason, it repels them. So we started selling
Oh,
tiger poop
interesting.
for $25 a bucket, and we were selling out of that left and right. And of course, that's a renewable resource, right? So we were way ahead
Yeah.
of this whole renewable resource thing.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, you basically had this waste product and you just made money from it. Love it.
You got it.
And things like that, like coming up with ideas like that. Is that something that you're kind of in the shower in the morning going, "Oh, that's a good idea"? Or are you kind of like in a brainstorm meeting with your senior management?
I was out just walking the zoo and thinking, what the heck do we have? What would people be interested in? I saw little kids say, oh, look at that turtle. It's pooping. Good enough. So
It's
you just
clearly,
never know where ideas come from or how to get them. But
yeah.
that's what makes back to the success of making it fun when one of those do work. And honest to God, there's so many that I probably have that didn't work, but
Hmm.
nobody remembers that I said those.
It must be a dream. I mean, many people out there I know listening to this would be running a zoo or just working in a zoo would be an absolute dream job. And was it a dream job for you?
It really was, mainly for the reason is that you were helping people, you're helping kids, you're finding ways that kids that couldn't afford it. We just tell the people at the front desk, just let them in. Just don't say anything.
Mm.
Just say, go on in. If the mom would say, oh God, we can't afford it. To, it's like Disney World. At Disney World, if you notice, they only, in the past, now with all the terrorism stuff, they probably have more, but they used to
Yeah.
only have one cop sitting in the back room because no one ever stole from their area. There were never fights because you go to Disney World to have fun. And that's the way the zoo was. And we only had one exit. So if we lost a kid, we would always find them immediately.
Yep.
We never lost a kid. Everybody came fun. Everybody had happy. And if they weren't, we gave them a little, and the word spread about how neat this new zoo was. Another group came in. It was the LBGQT
Yeah.
plus.
LBGTQ. Yeah. Yeah.
They came in and said, "Hey, we'd lost our location to have a big Halloween party. I didn't know what was going on. Sure, well, we'll give you an evening just like the Zoo Brew. We'll just shut it down and it'll be yours.
Wow.
So we had about 4 employees. So I walked out and here's a guy in drag.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh no, if my board of directors see this, oh crap. But we became great allies to be able to give them a private place to be entertained, have fun. Everybody loves animals. And
Yeah.
we now are accepted by all aspects of the community. Again, getting that bushel basket of every color, race, creed to
Yeah.
come together because it was a public deal. And so that's something that'll be around for a long, long time.
So one of the big things we love doing on this podcast is bringing folks who've had amazing, interesting, and unusual careers, such as yourself, and really just get them to relive that sort of one singular, most unforgettable sort of experience of their career. And I know you've had so many, but I mean, which one sort of stands out as that sort of really exceptional experience?
The one that really kind of set the end of my career in motion was the Eddie Tipton case. And that was a gentleman who didn't work for us, but worked for a vendor of ours who wrote programming code for one of our lottery games that would automatically draw with a computer the numbers. Well, he put in a code that would allow him one time every year on a given date to know the numbers within 200 combinations instead of
Wow.
2 million or 20 million.
Yeah.
And he did it in Colorado, one of our other states. He did it in Wisconsin before us, but he did it in Iowa, and he was unlucky. He walked into a store that had both video and audio. He had hoodie on, he was covered up, so you couldn't really tell who it was. And so he bought it. We figured out he had won $16 million and nobody showed up and we couldn't figure out what was going on. And it started getting really crazy because then all sorts of weird people started saying, hey, that's mine. I think the clerk stole mine, or, my brother took it and my husband's in the mafia and I know they took it and I get half of it. So you watch for that if it comes in. And then 11 months, about a month before it was going to expire, because no one had claimed it, no one actually had it, and you got to have the ticket to claim it. We got a call and the guy said, I bought that ticket. And because we had the video and audio, we knew what it sounded like. We knew it wasn't him. So he created fraud. So we got all the investigators together and we started hunting and they just gave it up. Well, who gives up 16 million? Bill Gates wouldn't give up 16
That's
million.
a red flag. Yeah.
So the investigators started a case, and it took about 4 or 5 years. And ultimately we realized it's this guy who worked for one of our vendors. And we finally busted him, and when we busted him, it took a hot dog, 2 hot dogs, and Bigfoot along with the ticket to figure him out, because when he bought the ticket, he was recorded video and audio, and it was the audio, his voice, that people recognized when we released it to the media to say that anybody ever seen or know this person. But he bought 2 hot dogs. And his brother got on the stand when we were trying to get him convicted and said, that can't be my brother because he don't eat hot dogs. Well, the guy weighed 350 pounds. So everybody kind of laughed, and the Associated Press put that out on the national wires, and it went back to the hometown.
Yeah.
And we figured, and somebody down there, an FBI person, called and said, hey, that guy's brother who was on the stand, he won a jackpot in Colorado, so you should be looking at him. So here's the moral of the story. If you are ever going to do anything illegal, don't use your cell phone. Don't lose your social media, because we took everybody's contacts that were involved in all their social media contacts, all their cell phone, and immediately found 5 jackpots, connected them all together that had been won across the United States, and busted them. Now, the moral of that story is, because lotteries are run by each state, so there are 48 different lotteries in America. Australia will have a lottery. England has their lotteries. But the other lottery directors are saying, hey, let this lie, because you're gambling with our $80 billion industry. People are going to not want to play if you're saying it might be rigged. But my governor, the people in charge of our state, and I said, whatever we do, we're going to spend whatever it takes to find this, because we want the game fair and honest. And so I learned a real key valuable, because I'm a promoter. You can tell that already, promoter. Every time we got on the air, we sold more tickets, ironically. And ultimately, We busted it. We figured it out, and they pled guilty. Three different people: the guy who did the programming, his brother, and his best friend, who all had been claiming tickets all over the
Wow.
U.S. And the moral of that is trying to figure out when your ethics, do you keep your gut in trying to do that? And of course, I'm a promoter, so I'm always on the air. And every time I'm on the air, we're selling tickets, and they're saying, "Just shut up! Just you're going to hurt us if you just be quiet. It might be a lot better for the industry." But ultimately, did it work? It worked because we found them guilty. We found the evidence. They pled guilty. They went to prison for up to 25 years. And lo and behold, the lottery industry went from an $80 billion industry to about 110,
Wow. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
$105 billion. It went way up. So it worked because people are thinking, should I gamble, online off Maltese, or, wherever people are doing it online, or would I be better to do with my lottery, because at least they're looking at it.
Yeah.
And I think people figured out,
The
hey,
more
it's better to
trust.
do it that way. And so it was gut wrenching. You talk about, nights where you just saying, what the hell am I doing? And the only thing that worked is we got closure. Usually if there's a rape, a murder, an assault, you don't get closure because it's appealed all the way up. But our
Mm,
prosecutor and investigators were so good, by the time we got through it all, we had enough evidence for them to say, "Yep, I did it," and they all cut deals and went to prison for a while, and I think they're all out and doing their thing now. So that is probably what I'm best known for today,
yeah.
in that. And it was kind of a failure in that he was doing it. Why somebody didn't find it before. It wasn't our employee. It was this other company that
Yeah,
does
yeah.
it. But on the other hand, we turned it to success when it was all said and done. So that is rewarding.
I wanted just with the Tipton case, I just want to sort of go back and reframe it slightly. So, I mean, just take us from it was an everyday day at the office. You're running the lottery, in Iowa. What was the first that you heard about this issue, this potential problem?
First, I heard that we had a problem. I was on a cruise ship near Belize. And ironically, the people who claimed this ticket formed a corporation in Belize. Well, that should tell you something, because that's where most of the tax fraud happens, in Belize.
Yeah,
I'm on the cruise ship. I get a call, and it's from the security and the public information officers. Hey, we got a problem. We got somebody that says they want it, but doesn't sound or look like anything that we have here. We don't think we should pay it. And I said, don't pay it. We'll take it to court
yeah.
and let the courts decide. Then, because if you pay it, you're never going to see it.
No, yeah,
And
yeah,
that's the first thing I heard. And I'm worried because I'm working for the state, and it's costing $9 a minute to be on this darn telephone on the ship, and
oh
I'll catch
yeah,
hell for that too, for, spending their money unwisely somehow. Um, so anyway, we came back, and then we went through the 2 or 3 weeks, and this person didn't show up. They sent it back to a guy in New York who was a lawyer, who said, "Okay, I'll try to claim it." And that's when he came in an hour and a half before the ticket was to expire. If they think through this thing, it's the stupidest thing, because that just raises all sorts of red flags. That you
yeah.
wait till an hour and a half before the ticket's going to expire to claim it, because you think, well, maybe
Jeez.
somebody else had at some point, and then they give it up. And
Yeah,
so giving it up even made it more weird, because it just kept. But then it was kind of fun, and then it was mysterious. And then all of a sudden you realize you're about to put somebody in prison. And what if this deal is with the mafia, and I end up with a horse head in my bed? There's some scary
wow.
times in those kinds of jobs, that you're dealing with millions and billions of dollars. It's
Yeah.
you try just to do it as you and I do, wake up every day and do your thing, but you never know.
I hadn't even considered that. So, I mean, that was something that yeah, you had in the back of your mind was like,
Well, as we were investigating one of the corporations that claimed, because two people won the one in Colorado, beside this guy's friend, and the other one was a question of luck spelled in Spanish, and it was based in Las Vegas. So I thought, this could be. And so you realize when you're in a management position to trust your investigators, try not to get your nose in the investigation. That was tough for me because it was so interesting.
yeah,
And let them do your job, because you get your nose in it, you could screw it up.
geez. So I mean, but I mean, I didn't, I never thought that the mafia being involved. There's so much, as you say, it's one of those things. There's millions and millions of dollars at stake. It's so tempting for not just everyday people like Tipton and whoever, but for gangs and organized crime to try and, get their fingers into this. And you had thought about the potential threat on violence against yourself for messing up.
Yep. Me and people
Wow.
that were doing investigations. But it's a little different, I think, being in the Midwest. We just don't have the kind of organized crime that you do if you were sitting in New York or Las Vegas,
Yeah.
and at least that's my perception. Whether it's right or wrong here, I may be saying this, and some mafia guy come visit me tonight to say, "Hey, you got to straighten that stuff out." So, you just you try to do the job the best you can. You try to do it as honest as you can, and that goes
Yeah.
back to your farm upbringing, in that, integrity was always a big deal, because everybody knew you, and if you messed up, that was the rest of your life. You're stuck there on a farm. They, wouldn't trust you. They wouldn't do business with you.
Yeah. So basically, you had someone that wasn't your direct employee, but someone within the system of the lottery who
Yep.
was responsible for, essentially, coding the system from a number
Mhm.
generating system. Came up with a clever scheme of his, and then it was basically because he'd done it multiple times, but it was just the poor execution on this particular
Yep. Well,
event.
Chris, here's the lesson I learned, because I did a lot of research, because I do a lot of speaking now on how to prevent this deal.
Yeah.
There are three things that get people to steal internally. American Certified Fraud Examiners. Number one is they need the money. Hey, and that's, I've got caught gambling, or I've been drinking too much, doing drugs, got a divorce. I need the money, and I need it now. But if you don't have the second one, which is opportunity, you won't steal, because that's where the checks and balances come on. That's why you want somebody to write the PO and somebody different to sign the check, in simplistic terms. So you got to have the financial need, then the opportunity. He had the opportunity. He wrote the code. He combined the code. He had all the keys to the kingdom. There wasn't anybody overseeing him in that, because they had a very
Wow.
small operation for that company doing that.
Yeah.
And the third one, which is the toughest to oversee, is rationale. At what point does a devil on your shoulder say, you deserve it? Sue over there is making more money than you are. You deserve more money. You have the right to go ahead and steal. When those three are combined, you're pretty ripe for fraud. And that's why you have oversight and controls and checks and balances within an organization. And that's really important in small businesses. If you think of small school districts or small businesses, where the business manager writes the checks, writes the purchase orders, and the boss, it takes too much time. Get this out of my face. You just do it. That's
Yeah.
where you get taken.
Yeah. So it's and basically, I guess after that, it was just refining the system that was in place already to make, okay, we see there's a gap here. We got to fill that gap and make sure that never happens again.
Yeah, you go. Almost all will try a small one first. So he did Colorado, got $700,000, and then he did it in Wisconsin, got another 900,000. But this big jackpot was coming up, and it was going to be on the date that his code could work. And I don't want to split this money to anybody, because he was having other people do it for him. So he wasn't recognized, because he was prohibited, because he was a vendor of the lottery by our law, from buying tickets. So he disguised himself and went and bought it himself. But our law says whoever buys it has to reveal who bought it and what they look like. And he had somebody else say it, but because we had video and audio, we knew it wasn't him.
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. I have to ask, as a entrepreneur yourself, and someone who sees and appreciates interesting creative ideas, and I know this was a criminal act, was there ever a small party that was kind of impressed?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And this guy headed the security operations for this company that did it. And we had seminars all the time. And one of the things that everybody does is you get together and say, wonder how somebody could do that. Or I heard that in Europe they were doing this. Wonder, could that happen to us? What do we have for the checks? So every time they got together, they were thinking about, what do we do to do it? And he was leading those discussions. So if someone came up and said, well, I wonder what would happen if this happened, he just took it back and did it. And
Yeah.
so, we all do that. And I think that's how frauds actually get started, because the people who are in charge of the fraud are looking for the loopholes, because they're trying to prevent it. And if they found that, if you're trying to prevent people bringing dope over the border, bringing in fentanyl or whatever, What if I could figure out how to get a little bit of that once I arrest somebody to go sell? I mean, it's a typical routine.
Yeah. Well, there's entrepreneurs and then there's criminal entrepreneurs. Brilliant. All right. Well, I think just more generally about your sort of career, reflecting back on everything. Um, as I said, you've been leadership positions in many of these kind of things. What would you say is the sort of secret sauce there of being a good leader, a good CEO, a good president of a company?
Um, I think you learn that from others. My first boss in the cable ones, be fair to people. Um, try to be open. If they know what's expected, if people know what's expected, they'll do much more for you.
Mm,
So tell them, here's our goal. Here's what we're trying to do. If you've got ideas, help us out. You'll be rewarded if you can help us out. I think it is a good way. Um, Trying to understand the whole diversity we talked about. It has been in the limelight over the last few years, at least in America. And I think learning the new ideas, being able to adapt and not, if you've got everybody around the table that look like you probably are missing big opportunities. So trying to look for other avenues so that you're not just selling a widget to a certain area. You're selling a widget to this and something else that comes from that widget to a whole new group of people who do that, I think. But most of all, is trying to be kind. I mean, you try to be fair in what you're doing, and when you have to make a decision, try to explain what that decision is so that it seems like and try to do the best you can in doing that. Giving back to the community is fun and handling it, but in family, I don't know. I do fail in relaxation though. I wish I could
mm.
do what I see others being able to do, of being able to go to a beach and not be thinking about. But I go to a beach and I look over and say, I wonder if anybody ever invented a different kind of beach ball. I wonder. I'm always thinking, what would be the next thing I should try to get involved in? I think, wait a minute, I've already done it. What the hell am I doing here?
And obviously, like you're retired now, but you still probably keep your finger on the pulse with what things going. And I guess for people that are moving into this similar career trajectory, entrepreneurs, CEOs, heads of companies, what do you see as the biggest difference in today's landscape compared to what it was like when you were kind of working in that business?
Well, I think you've got to find an expertise that you know. You're not just coming out of college. You're not just going to jump into something because you know it. You've had classes that taught you how to put two molecules together to create a patent.
Yeah.
So if you aren't, that smart, or you're not going into something that technical, then I
Mm,
think you got to go to work somewhere to show and get associations with people and a business that you really enjoy. If that, let's talk the zoo. If zoo's your deal and you go in and look zoo, then look around and see, what do the animals need? What kind of vendors are here promoting at the zoo, and try to find something that gets your passion so that you can learn the business and then take that knowledge to adapt. If you just go in and say, hey, I went to the zoo the other day and I saw that they had these coin things that you press and they spend on 50 cents. I'm going to go start making those. You don't have any real background of, you're going to be way behind in doing it. And let somebody else pay you and take a job so that you can learn it first before you go in and spend all your money to try to learn it.
interesting. Yeah. I've been seeing some stuff recently where it's like, it used to be that you go to college, get a degree, jump into it. Um, but it's more, I think there's more of an entrepreneurial mindset now with a lot more opportunities out there, especially with the internet, social media. People's ideas can just come from nothing
All over it.
almost.
Yeah. And
It's
isn't it
amazing.
amazing? We did this documentary on the Eddie Tipton case, and it amazes me. In the old days, I'd try to get it on an HBO or something like that. Today, we put it on YouTube because
Yep.
it has 10 times the audience of Netflix,
Yep.
and we've had 800,000 views in a month and a half. And it isn't like
Yep.
you get them all the first week. Now we're going to have 1 million, 2 million people here in the first year.
Yep.
And that's a whole different aspect. So you learn all the different, you're learning all the time. We used to call it lifelong learning, but for me, it's just finding something you really are passionate about and just keeping your eyes open and finding people, associates who are knowledgeable in it to help teach you on how to make it work and then run like hell.
Brill. Terry Rich, thank you so much for taking the time. I mean, at the end of these chats, I always like to sort of say, what have you how do people find you? How do people reach you? How, you've got other stuff, books and documentaries out there. What would you like to tell people about?
Yeah, they're all out there. TerrySpeaks.com, TERRY speaks like talking.com is a place.
Yep.
And the other is take a look at the jackpot. America's Biggest Lotto Scam is available on YouTube, and that it's real easy to find if you just do Lotto Doc, DOC, Lotto Doc, like documentary, lottodoc.com. It'll take you right to it. It's about 45, 50 minutes, but that'll kind of show you the things that really messed with my mind over 7 or 8 years.
Yeah, I watched it this week. It's fantastic. It's really interesting for anyone who wants a deep dive on that Eddie Tipton case and to find out more about how Bigfoot and all that sort of stuff gets involved. Then you can go check that out. It's a good doc.
Sounds good. Well, this was a pleasure. Enjoyed talking to you.
Terry Rich, thank you so much for taking the time. I'll speak to you soon. And that's it for this week's episode. A huge thanks to Terry again for sharing his incredible stories. And a big thanks to you all for listening. If you want to see more from Terry, you'll find links to his website, books, and the documentary, Jackpot, America's Biggest Lotto Scam, in the show notes, and on the episode page at noordinarymonday.com. And as always, you can find extra clips and visuals from this episode across our socials, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and more. Next week, we are heading from the boardroom to the open skies. My guest is Heidi Porch, an incredible pilot who survived every aviator's worst nightmare, a mechanical failure that caused her to crash her plane into the ocean, miles from land or help. It is a mind-blowing story, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on that episode. Now, before I go, more on this new segment that I'm going to be introducing. At the end of each episode, I'll be sharing a short listener story. It could be one memorable moment, a funny mishap, or just a surprising twist from your working life. So you can either write them in or send me an audio clip on the website, but just keep it short. I think 1 to 2 minutes is what we're aiming for. And you can stay anonymous. I don't need to add your name, but if you want to, just throw your name in and you'll also get a shout out at the end of the show if it's read out. To send them in, head to noordinarymonday.com and click the listener story page. Or you can email hello, HELLO, at noordinarymonday.com with listener story in the subject line. I'm sure there are tons and tons of amazing anecdotes and stories out there, so I can't wait to see what you guys send in. If you enjoyed today's episode, please do 2 really quick things for us. Leave a 5-star rating and review, and tell a family member or friend. That's it. It really helps us grow the show, attract more extraordinary guests, and inspires new listeners. And that's it. This show is produced, hosted, and edited by me, Chris Barron. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great Monday, everyone.